And we're going to shift into our program today. I want to start off by thanking our sponsors who make Product Coffee possible. This is a free community event, will continue to be a free community event, and it's because of sponsors like Method, Pragmatic Institute, and Feature Upvote that we're able to do this every week. So thanks to those wonderful sponsors. And you can go over to productcoffee.com and productcoffee.com/resources. And you'll be able to find a little bit more information about all three of those sponsors, as well as some resources for today's talk. There's some links to Steve Johnson's profile on LinkedIn, as well as my own. If you're not connected to us already, please do. And there also is a really important document there. Oh, thank you, Reginald. You just posted the business model canvas that you're using in the chat there. There's also a document there in the middle of the page linking to a Google Docs notes document for today's session. And one of the things that we ask everyone to do if you're joining our session is go to productcoffee.com/resources and open up that notes document there. And as you're taking notes, as you hear things that resonate with you, take notes there in a collaborative document. Everybody build on what everyone else is capturing, so that you're not relying on your own notes to relive today's session and to pull out the important concepts and topics, but you're getting perspective from everyone and capturing that in a common notes document. You can save that into your own Google Drive or download a copy of it. It'll be there for you for as long as Google Drive is there for Product Coffee. But we link it. We do one for each meetup. So there's a separate document for each meetup. So go over to productcoffee.com/resources and check that out. Next week, we're going to be at our late morning time slot. So for those who want to join us from the East Coast, it's a little bit easier. For those who like a lunchtime meeting, it's a little bit easier. We have Product Coffee at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time next week. And we'll be welcoming Lori Hood, who's the CMO of Mobile Walla. And Lori has run product management, she's run product marketing, and she's run marketing. And we're going to have a fireside chat or a coffee chat with Lori and talk about how product managers and product marketing managers work together, and more specifically, what product managers can do to help fill the gap and ensure strong go-to-market content and collaborating with their marketing team, especially when there's not a formal product marketing function in place in an organization and the product team is being asked to wear even more hats in a lot of organizations. So that'll be a great conversation and a lot of the tales from the trenches. This week, we're going to be talking about product management roles and titles and what that career ladder looks like. And we're going to start off with kind of a simplification type of a conversation. I was out there, and joining me today is Steve Johnson. Steve, why don't you introduce yourself real quickly before we kick off all the content here?
Okay. All right. Well, I'm Steve Johnson. I'm from Virginia. I am I guess a part-time Atlanta person. I join this periodically, and I'll be at Product Camp in 2 weeks, actually in a physical setting, which is going to be bizarre. I've been a product management coach for 25 years, and my latest enterprise is a group called Product Growth Leaders, where we're getting behind product ops and product standardization of product process. Working with typically larger teams or startups. And I'm also part of the Quartz Open initiative that you'll learn about a little bit in our session today.
Yep. One of the real creators of that too. And there's
Correct.
a lot of thought capital that you put out there for the community to take and embrace and not tie them into a specific rigid framework, but really give them a foundation for creating something that works for their business and organization. So thanks for all the work you've done on that, Steve.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's shift gears into our main topic today. And once again, I'm Jason Brett. I host Product Coffee almost every week. And on March 19th, in just a few weeks, we're hosting Product Camp Atlanta back in person in Atlanta. So if you are here, come back and come join us at Ravinia 3 in the Lease Query office on March 19th for an in-person product camp. And if you're not here in Atlanta, come to Atlanta. We'd love to have you. And and if you can't make it to Atlanta, I'm going to be out on the road hitting some product camps around the country and around the world this year again. And would love to catch up with you wherever you are as well. So I'm going to fire up my screen share over here. And here we go. So I was doing a little digging around in preparation for this conversation. We had some questions come up in Product Coffee a couple of weeks ago around product management titles and making sense of them and what career paths might look like. So I was digging around, and I know we've had a few conversations on this topic, and it's a complex topic. There are lots of different ways that people look at it. And I grabbed a few frameworks that I found out there on the interwebs. And you can see there are varying degrees of complexity. Some people have the concept of junior product manager. Some have the concept of product owner. Some view a straight progression from junior product manager to chief product officer. And there's also a notion out there of when do you start managing people? There's a question about when do you start managing people? How necessary is it to manage people? So I wanted to start off today's conversation just by talking about the career ladder itself and at least creating a foundation for our conversation, a way of thinking about the different product management titles and career levels. That's been very helpful for me, at least, as I've coached people in their careers, both on my team and people from the community as well. So I put together a kind of a simplified chart that takes on my personal view of how the real product roles break down in a very simple kind of a manner. And the first three levels that I see, if you look across all companies that have a product management function, regardless of what those titles are, there tend to be some consistent types of levels that have similar responsibilities. And so at the individual contributor level, and this is kind of the first three that I want to talk about, are really at the pure individual contributor level that I see pretty consistently. And when we're going to call them the associate product manager, but they're the entry level product manager. Sometimes it's junior product manager. A lot of companies, I think, do themselves and their employees a disservice by calling this entry level role a product owner, and hire people for a very tactical role where their sole job is expected to be managing a backlog for a Scrum team and filling the agile product owner role. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But it is an entry-level product management profession that tends to have spend the bulk of their time interacting directly with product requirements, taking direction from experienced product managers and leaders who have already done a lot of the work to create a vision, create a plan, and create some targets. And they're executing at the tactical level to help with scale and to learn the skills that will help them level up in their career and take on more customer interaction. And the product manager is that somewhat seasoned professional. They're no longer new to the job as a general rule. They've got some experience there as a general rule. They know how to write some form of requirements, and that's going to vary based on where they entered their career, the type of requirements that they've got experience writing. They've got some experience and expertise in working with customers, identifying trends and translating and being a voice of the customer within their organization, being a customer proxy within their organization, and starting to understand the market as well, the market forces that drive product requirements and prioritization. Their job is to prioritize. It's really to identify trade-offs, opportunity costs, and communicate those with the development organization, oftentimes with associate product managers who are touching them and adjacent to their work. And then there's the senior product manager. The senior product manager is a truly seasoned professional. They've got a good amount of experience. They've probably brought multiple products to market or features to market at least. They've got experience within a product organization. 5-ish years at least is what I typically see in my experience. 5 to 7 years is where that senior product manager tends to start falling in line. And a lot of people very comfortably make this the top of their career path. They say, this is where I'm comfortable. I'm an individual contributor. I want to continue working with customers, and I spend a lot of time with customers. Senior product manager spends probably more time directly with customers than in what I see than most of the other product management levels that we're going to talk about, really talking about their customer problems as it relates to their product portfolio specifically. We're going to make a distinction when we start getting to the executive levels in just a minute from what I've seen. But the senior product manager does spend a lot of time with customers, translating, hearing, analyzing, imbibing those customer experiences, pains, and needs, and translating them down to priorities to work on solving, clearly defining problems that the organization can help solve normally for existing customers of the organization, sometimes for new markets, for new product launches. And you'll see more senior product managers focused on new product development than you will see associate product managers and product managers as a general rule, because they've been around the block a few times. Jason's experience.
And before you leave that point,
Yep.
it seemed to me that what you were saying was, or the way I think about the associate product manager is they don't yet have experience doing all aspects of product. And of course,
Correct.
And a complete aside that we do not want to go into right now is, what do you mean when you say responsibilities of product, right? I mean, reading aloud from JIRA to development is not really product management, but the associate product manager doesn't have the full skill set. The product manager does have the full skill set, and the senior product manager has done it a few times. Is
Correct.
how I think of those three levels.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that's a really great simplification. And the associate product manager, I think back in the trades, we talk about apprentice and journeyman types of career levels. And the associate product manager is really the apprentice. They've been identified as having the fundamental makeup to be a great product manager with some training, and they're being taken on by an organization to develop into a professional product manager. And the organization is investing in that individual's education with on-the-job training.
Good point.
Yep.
So continue on. I just wanted to.
No, I think that's great. Please continue to jump in. And are there any questions? Anything that somebody's seen that they think is drastically different, or can you look at your roles that you've had and say, yes, they fall in here neatly? I don't think this part is very controversial, but it may be. Let me know if there's something controversial here.
Hey, Jason, this is Andy. So one of the things that, on the associate product manager, I'd love to hear other people's opinions on that. Maybe whether it's now or later, because in some of our Houston community, we're really focused on trying to have organizations develop an associate product manager, because to me that's very entry level, college hire, 0 to 3 years experience, something like that, just to feed the flames, And I think even larger firms, they struggle with adding to their talent base, and they don't start at that level. They go straight to a senior PM because one, they just want people to step in and pick up right away versus being able to develop somebody that is, whether they're college hire or they're pivoting from another function and something at that entry level is appropriate for them. So I guess that we still see a lot of issues with a lot of organizations not bringing in at that level. And that term, associate product manager, to me is very appropriate. I'm curious to know other people's opinions on how much does your organization focus on bringing in that level of talent?
That's a great question, and definitely would like to hear hear some thoughts on that. Anybody want to jump in and give thoughts on why does your firm bring in associate level product managers? Why or why not?
Yeah, hey, this is Mark. I couldn't find my hand thing here to raise. So we're a fairly small organization, a couple of hundred people, and I think we're still trying to navigate the product management waters. We're a little, I would say, disjointed in terms of the organization. We have what we would call business analysts that I would say fit that associate product manager role. And they are, I would say, 100% writing requirements, working in Jira with the development people. We are looking for people, and they're calling them, and help me out. I think we're calling it a product manager. But as I said earlier, I don't know that the role is necessarily defined, and I think there's still some debate about should they come from more of a technical area or more of a business area. My issue is why aren't we looking at the business analysts to promote into the product management role, and then bring in people under them. So we are calling them, we're calling them product owners now that I think about it, not product managers, which I don't love, because I think that's not necessarily what the role should be. I think of a product owner as more of like a business analyst. And I would like to see more. I see it as the associate product manager would be like an 80-20, 80 on the tactical side, 20 strategic. Product manager is maybe 50-50. Then once you get to kind of the director and a level above, it's 20-80, 20 tactical, 80 strategic. But we're still kind of navigating. But yeah, we're calling them a product owner right now, which would be that middle level.
I saw a chart just yesterday, actually. I'll see if I can dig it up and send it to you later today, that actually was showing a spectrum of focus that different levels of product managers have on, and they broke it down between tactical activities, operational activities, and I'm not sure how, and I didn't read the article, so I'm not sure how they were distinguishing tactical versus operational specifically. I assume the tactical was managing backlog, executing, building requirements, and operational was focusing on live product and moving it and supporting the business, and then strategic. And it was a fairly complex chart, but it was an interesting piece to think about. Didn't have time to read it. We'll come back to it. Soumya, I saw you had your hand up. We may have finished what you were wanting to jump in on, but I want to make sure that we don't leave you out.
The chart describes my career, right? Like I started as a business analyst, and then I moved into a product manager. Now I'm a senior product manager. Now I'm thinking, should I stay a senior product manager or should I become the next person, right? Because I'm interested in both. Here, what I did personally, right? I work a business analyst. I work for a bigger corporation, huge, if you know healthcare. So I was reporting to product manager as a business analyst. I was doing more of a tactical, more of maintaining the priority, dealing with the dev teams, things like that. So when I was interested in becoming a product manager, one of the things that we worked on was exposing me to the client-facing calls, right? So that's how I got introduced into the client-facing calls, doing client advisory boards along with the product managers and things like that. So then I progressed into becoming a product manager. When I was a product manager, I moved to a smaller company, smaller than, it's a medium size, let's say medium sized company, where I was given more than one product to manage. So couple of iterations of, hey, bringing multiple products into market, being successful. So now I'm a senior product manager, doing a little bit more than what I did as a product manager. Even though it was a medium-sized company where I was a product manager, everybody was treated like a CEO of the product. You do everything that is needed for the product, right? You don't care, like they don't say, oh, you're a product manager, you don't get involved in strategic decisions. No, it is your product. You do everything from planning a feature for the initiatives for the next year to the maintaining the P&L for that, going and asking for budget money, everything that I did as a product manager. I moved to a smaller size company now as a senior product manager. I don't do as much as I have used to doing, but I'm doing something different than what I used to do. Because the company where I've joined now, like they're trying to form processes around product and things like that. Like it was like all silo. So I'm doing a little bit different than setting a process around the product managers in addition to managing a couple of new products, right? Like we are trying to build up a team and things like that. So this is a little bit of a challenging role than product manager, but I have done what a director of product management, what you would call, right? Doing the P&L, running stuff, everything. So that is why I said I'm at the fork where I can decide, do I stay here and be happy with controlling everything that I can control, or should I go a little bit above and train people to do that? Right now, I don't have reporting authority over people, but they are all silos, right? We have BAs who we have to work and then make sure they do the job. They don't report to us, but work-wise, I'm the one who's telling them what to do and where to go about. So that is where I am at now. Associate product manager is, I have very few companies use that. Majority use like BA, product owner, and there is this unfinished business of arguing who is a product owner versus a product manager or a business analyst. Like, what do you want to coin them? I really did not worry about it. It is just a title, you know, like you do what you do. So that's where I am at now.
And I think a lot of the framework that I'm suggesting exists here in the wild. I'm using titles, but I'm really talking about some characteristics at different career levels. So I often see, for example, I see senior product managers who have direct reports. They may have 2, 3, 4 direct reports in some companies. And there are a couple of different reasons why those situations exist. Sometimes it's because somebody needs an HR manager for some associate product managers and somebody that can mentor and coach some associate product managers, and they're not necessarily aligned to the same product, but they've taken a senior product manager, made them an HR manager to give them some resume experience and handle an HR challenge that they've got in terms of giving people a direct manager. Other times I see senior product managers who are responsible for 2 or 3 related products and may have 2 or 3 product managers or associate product managers. And I think of them more actually as a director of product management, even though that's not their title. And we're going to come back to that in a minute. I've got a few hands up and I want to real quickly jump over here to Faith real quick and see what Faith has got on her mind.
Thanks, Jason. I really appreciated something Soumya said. And I want to respond also to the question Andy originally posed. So Soumya touched on the idea of scope of influence that I think, in this sort of, tactical, apprentice, journeyman, et cetera. I feel like that's pretty important because even that kind of expanding scope of influence from maybe a relatively minor feature or minor product to be a bigger feature, a more important product, or perhaps maybe overall responsibility over multiple, a larger area where there might be subsets that are being handled in individual delivery teams, but maybe you have kind of scope of influence over, kind of the sum of those sort of execution efforts. So I feel like that was an important dimension. The topic of really why people do or don't have associate product managers, I find super interesting, because I'm not sure you can really, I'm not sure how well you can develop people from associate level or from inexperienced level if you don't do a good job assessing the folks you accept onto that rung of the ladder. And this might be maybe a controversial opinion, I don't know, but as I've been asked in the past, somebody mentioned business analysts as similar to that associate level role, being really immersed in the requirements. And that resonated with me. And I remember days when I was asked to try to, Faith, how can you develop business analysts? How can you help people? Can you help people be better at, like, can you help? Okay, don't take this the wrong way, but people would say, like, how can we help them be more effective like you? And and many of us here in this group might have been posed a similar challenge, but so much of the work at that level, to me, is success at that level is not really a function of learning what deliverables or mastering some templates or knowing that there's a process where I'm supposed to have a meeting and then I'm supposed to write a thing, but it's more about having really strong critical thinking and higher order literacy skills in the first place. That if somebody, and I find if people haven't been taught those or either have strong aptitude or learn them in the course of their formal education, somehow as adults, to me, it's a very, very hard thing to develop, because it's not, they're not really, they are skills you can develop. And I have, in certain training situations, not related to business analysis or product management, taught some of those. But in the workplace, I think it's a very hard thing, right? To sort of go, well, you need to learn to think better. So to Andy's point, I think partly, I think it's just that I don't think people really understand what it takes to go from just sort of a naive person to somebody who's actually very effective as a product manager. And some part of that is a little bit inscrutable, because some part of it is just about how well you think, not about how well you've mastered tools and techniques. So
I just want to add one thing to Faith, right? These progressions are fine, right? Like, I learned everything from basic. But the challenge that I have seen is, I usually, as a product manager or a senior product manager, report to vice president of the product management, who manages multiple products and things like that. But there is also a silo role that I used to work in. That is the director of product management. Even though I don't report to them, that is this person. Unfortunately or fortunately, both the time that I worked with the director of product management did not come from a product background or a product management background. They came from a different set of field, probably a person who was in sales, or a person who had on the development side, decided to move to the product side. So that is a challenge sometimes, like, to tell them when they make an initiative, which probably is not the right suited one. So that is kind of a fork that I meet with sometime in my life, saying, okay, this is not the strategy we should be going after, or the initiative we should be going after. So that is a challenge that I often meet, and I've been a little bit successful in convincing, but there are times where you have to, like, just keep quiet.
So yeah, thanks for that. I'm going back to a comment that you made earlier, Soumya, and I want to kind of move up through the chart. Now, we had a couple of questions that we didn't get to, and we'll try to get back to those at the end of the session today. But I do want to kind of talk about the what's next. And this goes back to the question you were asking a moment ago, Soumya. And this is where there's an emergence of a trend that I think is really helpful and healthy for the product management career path. Because we talked about in a lot of companies and in a lot of career paths, people kind of top out at that senior product manager level. And they say, I'm happy being an individual contributor. I love the products. I love the work that I do, interacting with customers, defining problems and communicating them in effective ways throughout the organization so that we can get funding and solve those problems. I'm not interested in managing people, or I don't want to manage a whole lot of people. The HR responsibility is not something I'm interested in, but I do kind of like mentoring and coaching people. And we're starting to see a trend of two career paths emerging and branching at that senior product manager role. And one is the director. And you described to me, Soumya, a minute ago, your description of a director of product management, I think actually is going to lean more into this principal product manager in some cases as well, because a director of product management, what I see, a true director, and the one that I'm proposing that this bucket really applies to, are senior managers of product managers who are responsible strategically for a group of products and the product management of that group of products, of a portfolio of products. And it's, fairly expansive. So they're responsible not only for the products, but for the careers and the growth of the product managers within the organization managing those products. And that's very much a combination of a strategic role and a human resources role. Now, I see some companies that have this notion of a group product manager, and some other companies who have a product management manager. Those fall all under that director level with maybe a greater or a lesser focus on strategy versus human resources. But in general, they kind of, in my view, all fall at that director of product management level, a group product manager and a product management manager. Home Depot has a lot of product management managers, for example, who are product managers, but their primary responsibility is to manage a team of product managers from an HR perspective, from what I've seen. And if there's anybody from Home Depot that wants to correct me on that, please do. But I've had a few conversations. So that's kind of the takeaway I've gotten. And then the principal product manager is almost like an executive role. And I think this is a great evolution in the product management industry, because it's recognizing that we've got a lot of individual contributors who are probably great mentors and have a strong strategic aptitude and expertise, but do not have any desire to be a human resources manager, don't want to be responsible for managing people. They want to focus on the product, but they've got a level of expertise that qualifies them for executive roles. So we want to compensate them and mold their careers in an executive-like fashion, but without requiring them to take on an HR management burden. And I spoke to a group over at Home Depot just a few weeks ago, actually, of principal product managers, and that's exactly what they've done. Spoke to a team of 9 principal product managers that they're building over at the Home Depot. It was a great conversation. And that is exactly what they're focused on. They're each responsible for major areas of product. They don't have direct reports, but they do serve as leaders within the organization, mentors and coaches throughout the organization. And they're all very senior product professionals who are focusing on product first. And it's a really interesting career path. A few organizations, IBM, I know, does this, has even a level beyond the principal product manager called distinguished product manager. That is an even more senior level of that career path, but still an individual contributor for people who are just significant experts in the product management profession. But as a general rule, that's where we're starting to see a division that I think is really helpful. And I wanted to really lean into on this talk to help people understand you don't necessarily have to go to director role. If you love products and want to stay on products, you can mold a career, and a lot of companies are starting to allow people to mold their role into this principal product manager type of role, and even creating it. Directors do tend to, the next step up on the career ladder for directors, sometimes director is where I stop, but the next step up is to that VP of product management level, where you're responsible for an entire product management organization. And these are often really heads of product in a lot of organizations. They are the top of the food chain, so to speak, for a strategic set of products. They own the P&L of the product, of the entire product portfolio, all its pieces. They own the team and the product management practice responsible for creating, managing, and delivering those products. And then finally, there's the chief product officer that is, organizationally responsible for the product management practice, the entire product strategy of the organization, not only the product strategy, but how the organization develops product strategy. They're taking a significant weight off of the CEO to own that product strategy piece and taking on a C-suite expertise in product strategy. The reason, and the other interesting trend that I see is in this principal product manager, even when they have to do even when they go to the distinguished product manager, there is also a re-merging of the principal product manager back into the product management career stream at some career ladder at some point. I do see principal product managers go on to become directors or vice president after they've spent some time as principal product manager and say, okay, now I am ready to take on a team and an organization and move beyond the product. And I've even seen a few cases where the principal product manager, their next role is chief product officer. They've got the expertise in strategy and execution and have demonstrated the mentorship and coaching capability that will let them help a company build a product management practice and a product strategy that they can scale with. So I've seen that happen in a few scenarios. I want to let Steve jump in here and Steve Johnson jump in here and comment on anything that you're seeing here. What are you seeing that's different? Does this align to what you're seeing? And we have not talked about this in advance.
Yeah, this does align with what I'm seeing, and I think as you move up this ladder, you spend less time with product and more time with product people. So it's less about managing a product and more about managing the people who manage the product. So
the organization of the product.
So at some point, the product you manage as a VP of product is the people. Right. And there's a thing going on in the chat stream as well. I'm seeing when we're getting to this kind of complexity of a career ladder, I'm often seeing a product ops role emerge. And this is a new topic that I've been talking about for 3 or 4 years. And basically, the idea of it is to standardize multiple product managers on a common set of metaphors, a common set of tools and templates, right? Common set of definitions of what the hell are you talking about, in terms of titles for that matter. And yet I want to throw a caution in here, which is probably off topic, but in some of the work I've seen, people are describing product ops as doing senior product management. They're having the product managers, deal with those damn developers, while product ops is doing market analysis and market research and customer discovery. And you're like, no, that's not what product ops is about. Product ops is about a standardization function across the organization so that everybody who has a product manager title is doing product manager work. That everybody knows where we put things on Confluence or on SharePoint or on Teams, that it's a normalizing function across the organization. So anyway, that's just a shout out about product ops.
Yeah, great. And I saw that thread going, and I know product ops is an emerging field as well. That's got a lot of questions, similar level of confusion around what it means. I think Marty Kagan wrote a great article on product ops. I'm not sure I 100% agree with his with where he is on it, but I think it was a great foundation over at the Silicon Valley Product Group website. You can just search for Marty Kagan product ops, and he has a breakdown of how he sees product ops emerging and where he thinks it fits. And I think it's a great article to read.
Yeah, and to summarize that article, I mean, he basically says that product ops, and I agree with this, product ops is the product management of product management. It's right, it's how you scale product management, but he's seeing an anti-pattern where the PMO, the project management office, has said, well, nobody likes us anymore. Let's rename ourselves product ops. And product ops should be run by product people, not by process people. And that's his big concern, is that the process people are taking over.
Yeah, that was definitely a big one of my takeaways with that as well. Yeah, Matt, I missed that event, but I know it's also recorded out there if you're a member of the or if you follow the Silicon Valley Lean Product Management and UX meetup. Dan Olson hosted, and Dan's been here on the Product Copy as well, hosting an event with Marty on demystifying product ops. It was I heard it was good. I'm sorry I missed it. So we've looked at kind of the career ladder here, and that speaks a lot to some of the responsibilities and the scope of influence of different career levels and how to think about your career path. But then there also comes to expertise and aptitudes in terms of the types of product management work that you like to do and are good at, and that needs to be done within the organization. And the reason one of the reasons I especially wanted Steve to join today is he wrote a great article taking those product management functions, many of the things that you were talking about earlier, Steve, where you said, what are the responsibilities of product management, and breaking them into some categories that really exist, I think, at almost every level of this product management career ladder, excuse me. I'll get my words eventually. Although they tend to start to a little bit leaner on one end, and then they widen in the middle, and then lean out again at the top of the ladder. And I'd love you to talk about that a little bit, Steve, if you would. I know you sent some slides over. Do you want to just kind of use them, and I can walk through?
Yeah. Why don't we go to why don't we go to slide 9, couple down? Oh, of course, there's animation. Well, then we go backwards, and I'll walk through this since everybody's seen it. The Quartz Open framework is a framework for categorizing the kinds of work that we do, and it's largely like a simple, agile, nimble process diagram where you can start pretty much anywhere. I mean, my first job as a product manager, I was actually a product marketing manager, and I was responsible for delivery to the market. So I started in like step 7 there. But the idea is as a definition of product management, we discover problems to solve, and then we work with a leadership team to commit to solve them, get the funding, do the business planning, put together a team, and then we describe the problems that we're seeing to a dev team, and they create a product. We then describe as well to a delivery team like product marketing, so that they can launch the product, so that we can connect with the market and discover more things and go around and around. And at the core of this model is continuous learning. And in a small organization of one product manager, guess what? You're doing all of this. But as we grow, and Jason, now you can click, we start seeing people specializing in one of these 3 colors. The blue color, discover and commit, is really, it leans into strategy. It leans into what new businesses are we going to go into, and what new markets are we going to go into. And it argues, I guess, do you like working with senior leadership? Right? If you'll click, the next color, describe and create, is really where the technical product manager or the product owner lives, maybe the business analyst lives, and that's doing like release planning, grooming stories, working very closely with development and design. And if you like that kind of work, that's a great place to be. And then the final area is as I said, where I started in the organization, which is focusing on growing the product we have now. We've got a product in the field, or we're getting ready to. So we would do, launch planning and sales enablement and go to market planning. And to do that, you have to like working with sales and marketing people. And, given my reputation for not liking salespeople, I think it's hysterical that I started in this product growth role. And in those days, when we said product manager, we meant all three of these things. But the reality was the job I was hired to do was primarily this product growth role, which we now call the product marketing. So when I talk about product marketing, I consider it part of this triad of a business person represented by the blue, a technical person represented by the tan, and a kind of a marketing oriented person or market facing person represented by whatever that third color is. Purple?
Yeah,
Maroon?
I'm going to go with purple.
Okay. So I think that kind of speaks to the kinds of skills you would need. Now, what I mean is you reflect on the kinds of activities that you enjoy doing. I mean, I have talked to product managers who don't like developers, and I'm like, I don't think you're in the right position. Right?
Yeah.
But in all cases, I mean, again, this is like a planning metaphor that I've used for non-software. And it's a very helpful tool for looking at how do we go through a cycle of planning and execution. And notice learning is at the core. You learn at every step. And the feedback you get from, one step, the learning process influences the next step. And if you go one more slide, then there's another way of thinking about roles that is a little controversial. But if you, first of all, there are two kinds of roles in the company. One kind of role focuses on markets, not on individual customers. The other roles focus on customers one at a time. And then within the market, we have people who focus on problems and people who focus on solutions. So why don't you click for me, Jason? As I think of it, product roles are in the problems column. They are the leaders. They focus primarily there. They are responsible for being expert in problems in the market. That means understanding buyer personas, understanding user personas, understanding the problems we're trying to solve, understanding the jobs to be done, and then coordinating with solutions people, the designers, the developers, including courseware development, including documentation development, and oh, by the way, including marketing communications. Marketing communications develops campaigns that solve friction in the market for the buyer persona. So the product marketing manager finds the problem and works with Marcom to design a solution. And I think that takes an entirely different, powerful perspective on the relationship between product marketing and marketing. And then the delivery teams are the ones that started in with S, sales team, support team, services, success, operations, all that is really dealing with customers one at a time. And it's really interesting if you look at some of the activities on the next slide, Jason. There's a whole bunch of things that are happening in all of these columns, and I see many product managers trying to do all of them. When I talk to sales teams, they're like, I need a product manager to do deal strategies with me and to create presentations and to create discounts and do revenue forecasting. And holy moly, no wonder we're confused and exhausted, because we're trying to do work in all of these areas. But if we do a really good job in the problems column, a lot of the things in the solution and delivery column gets a lot easier. And then finally, one more aspect, next slide. As we grow, we start realizing that the kind of work you do is also contingent on the kind of where your product is in the life cycle. So a product strategy person should be thinking about the future. A quick aside, the biggest problem we have with meetings is that everybody's having a different meeting during the meeting. You have a strategy meeting, and yet somebody says, "Oh gosh, there's a problem with the product. Let's stop what we're doing and deal with this firefighting issue." Or we're having a status meeting, and somebody says, "Well, I think we should totally rethink our strategy." And you're like, "Everybody have the same meeting, would you?" So, on the one hand, we have product strategy, which is the future. What products should we be building? What markets should we be serving? And this would be, the principal product manager that Jason was talking about, doing product strategy. Product planning is more about what are we going to do next? What's the next release? What's the next model? What's the next big epic? And then product growth is how do we increase sales of what we have now? And so these slices, I think it helps you define the scope of the roles that Jason was talking about earlier. So if you find like a product marketing manager, I would put them in the product growth category, focused on problems that are preventing us to achieve growth, not reading aloud to salespeople from Salesforce, or, "Oh yeah, let me forward that PDF for you because you don't have a secretary and suddenly I'm yours." "Hey, Steve, I need you to come do a demo." Great, you should get a sales engineer because product managers don't do demos.
I was just about to ask you which product manager does demos, just to set you up for that.
Yeah. I find one of the big issues that we have is because, as somebody said earlier, we don't have a clear understanding of what the role is. We define the role as everything everybody else doesn't want to do. And we find product managers doing sales engineering. We find product managers doing design, like prototyping, which is a design role, not a product management role. This tool helps you look at the activities and say, you know what, I'm going to get really crisp on my job definitions and say product managers are focused on the problems column, development, design, and marketing are in the solutions column, and then sales and other customer facing teams are in the delivery column. And we need to enable those people to do their jobs, but we can't do their jobs for them. It's simply not scalable.
Hey, Steve, Elon asked on the little thread that we had there on demos specifically, and clarifying that you're talking about product managers aren't the right people to do sales demos. It's not that product managers don't do demos. It's that they're not the resource that sales takes into the field to do product demos to support the sales cycle in general.
Correct. A product manager should never be involved in a deal. And yet, I've had a number of extremely long arguments on this point because of these two very different perspectives. Sales guy says to me, "But Steve, product managers are great on sales calls." And that's true. But going on sales calls is not product management, which is also true. And the sales guy goes, "Oh, but they're so good," which is true. You know who else is good? The CEO is good. You should take the CEO on every sales call. Well, he doesn't have time for that. Guess what? Neither do product managers. We need to be focused on enabling all the salespeople, not enabling a single salesperson.
How do you feel about there's a thread here kind of pushing and prodding on that, and I struggle with it as well. There's a difference between being the resource responsible for doing those sales demos and being the critical path resource in getting a sale done, and being occasionally part of the process to learn the context and learn about your customer. I don't think you're saying you should never do it. It's that you shouldn't be the person responsible for it, correct?
I mostly agree with what you said.
Okay, well, let's get clear.
So here's the other thing. We often say, I learn a lot on a sales call, and maybe you do. If you, in your product marketing role, need to understand better how the salespeople are positioning the product and talking about the product and presenting and demoing, then that is a customer, effectively a discovery role of finding problems. If sales doesn't know enough about the product and sales doesn't have a sales engineer and they call product managers for every sales call, then you're not a product manager, you're a sales engineer. If a primary responsibility is supporting sales at the customer level, you're not doing product management. You're doing sales engineering.
Agreed. Completely agree with that.
I just want to add one thing about the sales demo, right? Usually the sales engineers do the demo. There is a demo person who goes to the first knock on the door. Hey, I'm here. This is my product. But as a product manager, I have had situations where they pulled me aside saying, hey, this is this one big, large client. Whatever they are asking for, I know we have it in the near roadmap, right? It is coming this year or next year. If they ask you more questions about those topics, I won't be able to answer. Would you be able to join hands with me? Majority, the sales demo guys are doing the demo. But when the client is having questions about, hey, do you have this particular feature? And it is in the roadmap, sales guys don't have much of idea about what we are building, right? So those kind of demos I have been on just to make sure we get this huge, big client.
Mm-hmm.
So
I hear that. And you know, I want to be a team player, right? If this occasional thing happens, but if it's every day or every week or even every month, then it's a staffing problem. It's not a product management problem. Product management is often filling in for understaffing or underskilled teams rather than, and therefore not able to do product management. How many times have you heard a product manager say, I've never visited a customer? And even when you visit a prospect on a sales call, you're not really learning about the product, you're learning about selling. And imagine if you say, you know what, I want to take this opportunity to do customer discovery. And, you know, we don't have anything in our product today that does a good job of 3D visualization of the data. And the sales guy is going, shut the hell up. Don't talk about what we don't have. Demo what we do have.
Yeah,
So
that is one big battle I don't go about with sales. I let them go do their job, and then if we need, we do go help them, right? Like we need, yes, details of roadmap they probably don't know, so we do go and help.
yeah, I hear you.
There has been a situation where they reach out to you for every single RFPs, right? Like every single RFP. Oh, there are 100 questions. Can you answer them? The idea what we did was it got so much into our day-to-day job, we created a dictionary for them. We said, okay, we are storing all the RFP in the SharePoint, go take the answer from there. You know, like even sometimes our job not only is to build the product, is to make sure the teams also build themselves, right? Like we started treating each and every team as a product and trying to find out where the holes are and starting to fill it for them. So everything
totally.
is a product.
And so what you've described is there's a problem in sales enablement. So the product growth person works with marketing to address that problem by giving salespeople better or different sales tools. So real quick example, and I know we're running short on time.
Let me real quickly jump in, Steve, and I'll get you your example. For those who have to drop, shoot me a note. We're recording this. We'll have it unedited on a private YouTube channel. And if you want to catch the end, if you have to drop, let me know and we'll send that over to you. And Matt, we will get to you in a moment as well. So
the example
ahead,
I wanted to say just really quickly, one of the primary tools of the product growth role, the product marketing manager, is win-loss analysis. And in doing win-loss analysis myself a few years ago, I learned that the sales team was stumbling on explaining some technical underpinning of the product. And I mentioned it to a friend and he said, well, that's because the salespeople just aren't smart enough. And I'm like, well, that's not the right answer. So I sat down with marketing and I said, here's my problem. And marketing said, hey, why don't we get the CTO to explain all that on video and give the video to the sales team? So whenever the sales team encountered this problem, they're like, you know what? Let's talk to the CTO. And they brought up a video. And now we have solved a Salesforce problem rather than addressing one deal. If you're involved in one deal, you're not doing product management, you're doing sales.
That's absolutely true. Matt, I saw you took your hand down, but I've had to pass by you a couple times. Jump in here.
Just quickly, question for Steve. So I've been involved in so many deals,
Me
demoing
too.
product. And how do you start to convince an organization to change its mindset when they've been tuned into the fact that product managers know the product so well, we can just rely on them to do demo after demo? You know, we've tried different things like coming up with scripts, you know, demo sites, but they just don't seem to want to take ownership of it.
Good point. Well, you know, one trick. Well, hang on. At all times, you should look at, whenever you do things, how is this going to be received by the sales team? So a story I blogged about this week, a new VP of product management came in and he said, you guys are so smart. I want to really pump up the product management reputation in the organization. And so he had a video interview of the week, you know, and he would do an interview with each of the product managers and their skill set and where they came from and what their product was. And you know what? The salespeople said, wow, that Matt, he's great. I'm going to take him on a lot of sales calls. So through the best intentions, he showed the sales team, here's a great resource for you to misuse. And of course, there's 100 salespeople and only one of you. So, you know, you can't help them one at a time. You have to help them collectively. And so the real answer is first of all, make sure that they do have the sales enablement tools they need so they don't need what's in your head, but also incorporate it in all of your thinking. Like when you write a blog post, figure it's going to be reused. I mean, for me, for my sales teams, the phrase company confidential means distribute immediately.
Right.
Fine, let's write them that way. You know, let's give them things that are intended to be shared, because I in many cases, I think salespeople are not, I mean this in a nice way. Salespeople are distributors of information. They're not creators of information. So let's give them information they can distribute. One other quick one is, if you have a sales engineering role in your company, and you should, have them do sales training. Product managers often do sales training. And guess what happens? Every sales guy goes, damn, that Matt is smart. I'm going to take him on all my calls. Instead, I get the sales engineers to do sales training, and the sales engineers are perceived as, oh gosh, look, that sales engineer is really smart. I'm going to start taking him on my sales calls. Cookie, you had your hand
So
up.
it's really about setting expectations then,
Yeah.
and getting off on the right foot to begin with.
Totally.
I think many of us find ourselves in a situation where we're having to course correct.
Oh yeah, totally. And you know, it started out with the best of intentions, but then, you know, the company scaled, and I could support one person. I can't support 100. And another quick one, just real quick. A friend of mine took over as the VP of customer support for an organization, have moved up through the ranks. One of the sales guys started passing out her private phone number because she's great, and she is, right? And suddenly there's 100 customers who have her private phone number. So she, you know, ultimately had to change her phone number. She can't handle all these special requests. That's why we have trees. That's why we have level 1, 2, 3. I mean, we build these systems, and when salespeople bypass them, we need to destroy them. So escalate, yeah. Get your
When
management
salespeople
involved.
bypass them.
It's
Yeah.
like the client's calling the implementation person's name in Salesforce cases after like 10 years of being on the product.
Totally.
Because they like the implementation person so much,
Sure.
they never let go of them. So
Sure. And I have a friend who works in an organization similar to mine, and they've had difficulty with people getting kind of married to their instructor. And so she has just said, I no longer do instruction. And they're like, oh, but could you do it in this one case? And she's like, no, I'm now the president. I can't work on the business when I'm working in the business. Cookie, you had a point you wanted to make.
Yeah, maybe just before I drop on, maybe moving away from the sales discussion, and I go back to the slide, Jason, that you were showing with the evolution from assistant product manager. I think that certainly represents my 20-year product management career, starting in consumer goods and then moving into tech. And I've spent a lot of time this one here. I spent a lot of time in the last, 2 or 3 years thinking about this and why do we have this and what does this mean, right? And what me and a bunch of others, as we thought about this, constantly come back to is, at the end of the day, we are human beings that show up to work every day with a sense or a desire or a hope that the workplace that we go to is a place that we can learn, as you were saying, Steve, right? And a place in which we can grow and master our craft, right? And I really think of engineering. Well, let me start. So you have building software or building product as a team sport, right? You have engineering, you have design, you have product management. You sort of have the why, the what, and the how, right? And product design and engineering, these are disciplines to which people go to school to learn. They learn the practices of. There is a craft that they can tinker with and learn and do things. And I have a lot of conviction that the future of product management, we as product leaders have a true responsibility to define product management as a craft, as a discipline to which human beings can choose to say, I want to pursue that craft. I want to develop mastery in that craft. I understand that there is a pathway for me in terms of a growth ladder from assistant to PM to senior PM, and that at each level, I have the opportunity, supported by my leadership, to develop a different level of mastery in that craft. And there might be different sort of like forks in the road, and I'll do principal, or I'll do, or I'll be people management and so forth. But for me, it's yes. APM, PM, SPM, whatever, however you define it in terms of title, we have to take a step back and we have to give these human beings a sense that they can grow and they can master that craft. And until we get sort of a critical mass of thinking in the PM domain across industry, that's actually what we're trying to do, then I think these kinds of conversations are always going to just churn on title and responsibility. We're not going to anchor it in, hey, I'm here to help you grow in the direction that you want and master this craft of product management, because it is a craft alongside engineering and alongside product design.
You're here.
Yes.
Well said.
Really well said. I see some applause and some thumbs up and some snaps. And very well said, Cookie. Thank you. I think we're about almost 15 minutes over, but it's been a great conversation, and based on the comments and the threads here in the chat, the stuff that we've got to talk about, we didn't allow nearly enough time for a conversation on the simple product management career ladder, because it's really not all that simple. The ladder is, but the ins and outs can get very complex, and there's a lot of detail that goes into it. I think I do want to thank everyone for joining. Steve, thank you so much for bringing your thought leadership to the table and talking through the roles and how those functions of product management apply at different levels and throughout the organization, and your great thoughts on how we can be very intentional about the work that we allow ourselves to get drawn into doing, so that we can make space for the work that we need to be doing. I really always really appreciate your perspective on that.
Glad to be here.
And for those of you who are watching us online or watching the replay, I hope you can join us next week, March 2nd, with Lori Hood, CMO of Mobile Wallet, and we'll be leading very hard into that product growth concept with product marketing, and how we, when we're product managers that have to take on a lot of growth activities and a lot of the now activities for products that exist, and getting them in front of our customers in the right way, and making sure that we're making that presence known in the marketplace, that we're doing the right things and interacting with our marketing team and the resources that we do have in really effective ways. We'll have registration up for that later today. And if you're on the Product Coffee mailing list at productcoffee.com/newsletter, you'll be able to join that. We'll get you an invitation out to that call. So thanks everyone for joining today. It's been a great conversation, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.